Hey guys, it's Matt here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. And welcome to this next installment of my short licks series. So if you're fairly new to the channel or if you've not seen these videos before, I've basically been doing a bunch of short licks in various keys and using different techniques and then breaking them down, showing you how to play them, and also more recently providing some backing tracks that you can practice along to. This week's one is a little bit longer than I'd anticipated, so what I'm going to do with this one is break it down into two separate videos, and we'll look at the first part that you saw me play at the beginning of the video, and then the second part where I go a little bit further up the fretboard. We'll check that out in the next video. So today we're just going to focus on that first run, but there are two alternative endings to that run, but the main part just repeats itself on both times round. So before we get into the tutorial part of it, guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and if you comment below as well, all these little things will just help me to grow the channel and help me to continue creating content as well. Alright, let's get into the tutorial. Alright, so for this lick we're going to be using the key of C sharp minor, and the start of the backing track begins with C sharp minor and then later drops down to an A major. And the A major part is what we'll check out in the next video. So we're just going to be focusing on that lick that begins over the top of the C sharp minor chord. And there's a few things that make this lick fairly tricky, including the hammer-ons and pull-offs, the picking direction, but probably most of all is going to be the rhythm, because throughout most of it we're going to be using sextuplets. And because we've only got 2 notes per string for most of the lick, it can be quite challenging to get that right feel with sextuplets when you've only got 2 notes per string. So something to bear in mind when practicing this lick. Always good to practice it nice and slow, and then you can gradually build yourself up once you've got that rhythmic pattern down. So for the opening part of the lick, we're going to grab the 5th string on fret 6, and then we're going to hammer on to fret number 7. So here we're going to be outlining the 9th against a C sharp minor chord, and then we're going to be hammering on to the minor 3rd. So we're instantly going to be outlining the extension and then a chord tone within that C sharp minor chord. So that's going to sound like this. Okay, and then once we've done the hammer on, we're going to do the same thing on the 4th string. We're going to grab the 6th fret, hammer on to 7. So we're just using the 1st to the middle finger for both of those strings, and we're going to attack that with a downward pick on both of those. Okay, so we join those together. So far we've got this. So the notes we're using so far, we've got D sharp to E on the 5th string, so that's the 9th to the minor 3rd. And on the 4th string, we're grabbing G sharp to A, so that's going to be the 5th to the flat 6. Okay, jumping onto the 3rd string, we're going to take the same sort of pattern again. We're going to grab the 6th fret on the 3rd string with our 1st finger, so that's going to be the root. And then we're going to hammer on to D sharp on the 8th fret. So again, we're outlining that 9th on the 3rd string this time. Okay, and then again, we're going to pick that 1st note on the 3rd string with a downward pick, and then obviously the next note is sounded out with the hammer on. So now we have this. So because we're playing sextuplets, those first 6 notes will actually cover the first beat of the bar. So just to give you an idea of the rhythm and the timing of it, I'll count myself in and then I'll play those 6 notes just to give you an idea and concept of the rhythmic pattern, but at a nice slow tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so next up we're going to jump onto the 2nd string and we're going to grab fret 5, and that's the note E against the C sharp minor chord. That's going to be the minor 3rd, and then we're going to hammer on all the way up to fret 9 for G sharp, which will be the 5th. So again, we're just highlighting those chord tones from the C sharp minor chord. That will sound like this. So I'm grabbing that 5th fret with the 1st finger and then hammering on with the pinky, and again that's with a downward pick. So far everything is played with a down pick as we change from one string to the next, and then obviously the 2nd note is just a hammer on each string. And then next up we're going to move on to the 1st string, and we're going to have that exact same pattern again from fret 5 to fret number 9. So that's going to be A all the way up to C sharp. So that will give us the ascending part of the run. So here's what it sounds like so far. It's also worth pointing out that as I'm moving down the strings, my picking hand is slowly moving further onto the string, so that by the time I get to string number 1, my right hand is actually resting on most of the strings, which will just help to eliminate any unwanted string noise from those thicker strings that we're not using, as we're doing a lot of hammer-ons at the moment, so that inevitably is going to make your strings resonate anyway. Okay, so once we've completed the hammer-on on the first string from the ascending part of the lick, we're now going to start going back the other way and introduce the pull-off part of the lick. So I'll play the hammer-on and then I'll pull off back to the first finger from fret 9. So it is a little bit of a stretch getting that little finger onto the 9th fret and then pulling off back to the 5th fret on your first finger. So just make sure you've done some warm-ups with your fretting hand before you get into this. Okay, so moving on to the second string now, we're going to be using the same patterns that we followed coming down the strings. So on the second string, we're going to be grabbing fret 9 and pulling off down to 5, but we're going to be using an upward picking direction. So we've kind of been following almost a sweeping type method for descending the strings, going down but going up in pitch, and then coming back up, we're going to be using an upward picking direction. So we're just going to grab the 9th fret with a little finger and then pull off down to the first finger like so. Okay, so moving on to the third string, we're going to use the same frets that we had before. So we're now going to grab fret number 8 with the 3rd finger, and then we're going to drop down to the 1st finger. And again, that's with the upstroke as well. So from the first string, if I go from the hammer on and then introduce those pull-offs, here's what we got so far from the first string. So really outlining some nice harmony and extensions from that C sharp minor chord in the backing. Moving on to the 4th string, again, we're going to grab those same frets, but just descending back the other way. So we've got fret 7 on the 4th string, pull off to fret number 6. And then we're going to do the same on the 5th string as well, again with an upward picking direction. So that will take us right back to the first note that we started on. There's a few more notes that come up after that, but let's listen to what we've got so far, nice and slow. All right, so it's a fairly straightforward picking pattern to remember. So far, it's just down, all the way down to the 1st string, and then once we start making our way back up from the 2nd string, it's going to be an upward pick stroke all the way back up. So as I said before, it's almost like a sweep picking sort of type technique. So to finish off this lick, we're going to hammer on back to fret 7 from our 1st finger. So if I go from the pull off on the 5th string, and then I'll hammer on back to fret 7 again. Then we're going to drop down onto the 4th string, fret number 6, using a downward pick. And then we're going to finish that first phrase now on the 3rd string, fret number 8, and I'm also hitting this with a downward pick as well. So at the end of the phrase there, if I go from the 5th string with that pull off and then hammer on back on, this is what we've got. So all together, we've now got this. Okay, so for the second part of the lick, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to ascend all the way to string 1, back to string 5. We're going to hammer on again back to fret 7, but instead of going on to the 4th string, we're going to pull off back to the 1st finger on fret 6 and then introduce a slide down to fret 4 for C sharp at the very end. So from the 5th string at the very end, that will sound like this with that upward picking direction from when we're going back up the shape. So it's just that ending that's ever so slightly different, just to give it a bit of variation and also give it some sort of resolve at the end. So that second phrase with that alternative ending sounds like this. And that brings us to the end of that first lick, dare I say it, short lick. It's a little bit longer than I originally anticipated, but it's just doing the same thing both times with a slightly different ending. And in the next video, we'll dive into that second lick where I go a little bit further up the fretboard. But stick around to the end of the video. I've got a backing track that you heard me playing over the top of at the beginning of the video, so you can jam over the top of that, have a little practice. You can slow down the video if you want to. Just drop down to the settings button and you can slow down the speed to whatever tempo is suitable for you. If you enjoyed this lick, let me know in the comments section below. And if there's anything you'd like me to cover in another short licks video, maybe it's a technique you want to work on, a particular scale choice, anything like that, let me know. It's always good to get feedback. As always guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment and hit the bell icon for notifications on all my future videos. Just helps me to grow the channel and also helps me to continue creating content as well. So look out for the next short licks video where I'll dive into the second half of this lick. I'll see you next time.